Hey guys, tonight we are going to leave the noise behind. All of it. The traffic, the notifications, the endless hum of the refrigerator. We're going to step into a world so quiet, you can hear the grass grow. We're traveling to the rolling hills of 19th century southern Africa, into the gentle world of a traditional Zulu homestead, to meet a healer who works with plants, dreams, and the quiet wisdom of the ancestors. Now, a friendly warning. You probably wouldn't survive this. Not because of any great danger, but because the Wi-Fi is non-existent, and the only available charging port is the sun itself, which is famously slow and incompatible with all modern devices. The pace of life here is measured in seasons, not seconds. It's a slowness we've all but forgotten. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support means the world. And if you have a moment, I'd love to see where you're listening from. Let me know your city or country and your local time in the comments. It's always so nice to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the light. It's different here. Softer. It filters through a thin, hazy sky and washes the landscape in a shade of warm gold. You're standing on a gentle slope, looking down into a shallow valley. The air you breathe is clean, carrying the scent of dry grass, distant wood smoke, and the rich, loamy smell of the earth itself. There are no straight lines in this landscape. The hills roll into one another like sleeping animals, their backs covered in a soft blanket of amber grass that sways in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Your journey here was long, but you don't feel tired. Instead, you feel a quiet sense of arrival, as if you've finally reached a place you were always meant to find. Below you, nestled in a gentle curve of the land, is the homestead, the Umuzi. It's not a single building, but a small, circular community of huts. They look like perfect, giant beehives, woven from golden grass and basking in the afternoon sun. A low, protective fence, made of thorny acacia branches, encircles the entire settlement, not as a threat, but as a gentle embrace. It seems less like a wall to keep things out, and more like a line drawn in the sand to say, here, inside this circle, is our home. Here, we are safe. You begin to walk down the worn footpath, the red dust puffing up around your feet in soft, silent clouds. The only sounds are the rustle of the wind in the tall grass, and the distant, contented lowing of cattle. As you get closer, you see the intricate order of the homestead. This isn't just a random collection of dwellings. It's a carefully planned space, a living map of family and community. In the very center is a large, circular enclosure, the Isabaya, the cattle kraal. This is the heart of the home, a place that represents not just wealth, but a sacred link to the ancestors. The cattle are everything: currency, status, and spiritual connection, all wrapped up in a warm, hide-covered package. You can smell them now or dry. Animal scent that is surprisingly pleasant. The huts themselves are arranged in a neat crescent around this central point. You learn later that this layout is a fundamental part of Zulu life, a physical representation of the social structure. The most important dwelling, belonging to the head of the family, is positioned at the very top of the arc, directly opposite the main entrance. You feel a sense of calm looking at it. Everything has its place. There's a logic here, a quiet confidence in the way the world is organized. As you approach the entrance to the homestead, you hesitate. There's no doorbell to ring, no gate to unlatch, just an opening in the thorny fence. A young boy, seeing you approach, gives a shy smile and gestures for you to enter. You step through, and the sounds of the outside world seem to fall away. Inside the circle, the air is still and warm. Chickens peck at the ground, unbothered by your presence, and from one of the huts, you hear the soft, rhythmic thump of grain being pounded. It's a sound that feels as old as the hills themselves. Asterisk, you're guided toward one of the huts. It's a beautiful, domed structure, a marvel of natural engineering. A framework of flexible saplings has been bent into a perfect semicircle, and over this, thick ropes of dried grass have been woven and thatched with incredible skill, creating a waterproof, insulated, and surprisingly cozy-looking home. Historians and archaeologists still wonder about the precise origins of this specific architectural style, while grass and sapling structures are ancient. The evolution of these specific weaving patterns and the symbolic geometry of the homestead layout is a subject of gentle debate, pieced together from oral traditions that stretch back for generations. Asterisk, you reach the entrance to the hut, and you notice something peculiar. The doorway is incredibly low. It's a small, rounded opening that will require you to stoop quite significantly to get through. It seems like a design flaw until you realize its purpose. This low doorway is a mark of respect. Everyone who enters must bow their head, a simple, physical act of humility. It also serves a practical purpose. It makes it impossible for an intruder to charge in unannounced. You'd have to crawl, which isn't a very threatening way to make an entrance. You duck your head, feeling the cool, smooth texture of the woven grass against your back, and step from the bright sunlight into the soft, cool darkness inside. Asterisk. Your eyes slowly adjust to the dimness. The air inside is cool and still, a welcome relief from the bright African sun. The hut is larger than it appeared from the outside, a single, circular room with a high domed ceiling that seems to pull the shadows upward. The floor is made of packed earth, polished over years with a mixture of cow dung and clay, until it has the smooth, cool feel of worn leather. It's surprisingly clean and pleasant, emitting a faint, earthy scent. A single beam of sunlight lances down from a small smoke hole at the very peak of the roof, illuminating a swirl of dust motes dancing in the quiet air. They seem to be the only things in a hurry here. Asterisk. In the center of the room, a small circular hearth sits cold and empty, and seated on a simple grass mat beside it is the reason you are here. She is an elder, a woman whose age is impossible to guess. Her face is a beautiful map of wrinkles, each line telling a story you can only imagine. Her hair is a soft crown of white, and she wears simple leather garments adorned with a few strands of beads. She isn't looking at you directly. Instead, her gaze is soft, directed towards her hands, which are resting peacefully in her lap. You realize you've been holding your breath, and you let it out slowly. Her stillness is not cold or unwelcoming. It is profound. It's the kind of quiet that seems to absorb all the noise and anxiety you brought in with you. This is the Inyanga Asterisk, the community's healer. It's a title that carries immense weight and respect. In Zulu tradition, there is a clear distinction between an Inyanga and an Iz. While both are healers, their paths and methods differ. An Izangoma is a diviner, someone who is called by the ancestors, often through a profound and transformative illness, to act as a bridge between the spiritual and physical worlds. They read the will of the ancestors. The Inyanga, however, is a master of medicine, a herbalist. Their knowledge is of the earth, the roots, leaves, and barks that hold the power to soothe and to mend. This knowledge is a science, a deep and complex pharmacology passed down through generations, often from father to son or, in this case, mother to daughter. Asterisk. The woman before you is a living library of this ancient knowledge. She hasn't moved a muscle since you entered, and the silence stretches on. It's not an awkward silence, the kind that makes you want to fill it with pointless chatter about the weather. It's a comfortable, weighted silence. You get the feeling that she already knows everything you could possibly say, and has decided it isn't necessary. It's a humbling thought. You, who are used to introductions and handshakes and the exchange of meaningless pleasantries, are completely out of your element. Your modern social toolkit is about as useful here as a smartphone in a rainstorm. Asterisk. Finally, She lifts her head, and her eyes meet yours. They are dark and clear, and they hold a gentle, knowing amusement. She gives a slight, slow nod. It is a greeting, a welcome, and an acknowledgement, all in one. You find yourself nodding back, a simple, mirrored gesture that feels more meaningful than any handshake. She then gestures with one of her hands toward a low, carved wooden stool near the wall, an invitation to sit. Her hands are remarkable, strong and wrinkled, with long, elegant fingers. They are the hands of someone who has spent a lifetime gathering, grinding, and mixing. Asterisk, as you move to sit, your eyes scan the curved walls of the hut. You see bundles of dried herbs hanging from the wooden framework, their faint, complex scents mingling in the air. There are small clay pots, gourds of various shapes and sizes, and a few mysterious-looking leather pouches. You notice a small personal item tucked into a fold of her leather skirt, a beautifully carved wooden snuff box. It's no bigger than your thumb, polished to a dark sheen from years of use. Snuff, made from dried and powdered tobacco leaves, was more than just a habit. It was a ritual. Taking snuff was a way to center oneself, to show respect, and even to communicate with the ancestors. The act of offering and accepting it was a vital part of social etiquette. To refuse a pinch would have been a grave insult. You make a mental note to graciously accept if offered, even if the idea of inhaling powdered tobacco seems about as appealing as sniffing pepper. Asterisk, the healer watches you take your seat. She seems to be reading you, not in an invasive way, but with a calm curiosity. You wonder what she is thinking. Does she find your strange clothes and soft hands amusing, or is she simply observing, in the same way she would observe a plant, to see if it is ready for harvest? You think about the remedies she creates. Historians and ethnobotanists have spent decades studying the medicinal properties of the plants used by healers like her, finding that many contain powerful active compounds that modern medicine has since synthesized. But there's an ongoing gentle debate about the source of the healing. Was it the plant alone, its chemical makeup working on the body? Or was it the entire process? The healer's focused intention, the patient's belief, the rituals that accompanied the treatment. The healer before you would likely see no difference between the two. The spirit of the plant and the spirit of the person were not separate things. Asterisk, she reaches for a small clay bowl, dips a gourd into a larger pot of water, and holds it out to you. It's a simple offering of water. As you take it, your fingers brush against hers. Her skin is cool and dry. The water is clean and cool, and as you drink, you feel the last of your modern world tension begin to dissolve. She hasn't spoken a single word, yet you feel completely welcomed. Now that you're seated, you have a moment to truly take in the healer's hut. Her Ndumba is both a home and a laboratory, a consultation room and a sanctuary. Every object seems to have a purpose, a place in a system you don't yet understand. Your eyes, accustomed to the bright, cluttered spaces of the modern world, slowly begin to appreciate the quiet minimalism. There is nothing here that is not useful or beautiful, and most things are both. The circular space feels organic, womb-like, a safe haven from the vastness of the world outside. The domed roof, with its intricate spiral of woven grass, draws your gaze upward, giving the illusion of a much larger space. It's like being inside a perfectly crafted basket. Asterisk, the air is thick with a complex, layered scent. It's not unpleasant. In fact, it's deeply calming. You can pick out individual notes if you try. There's the dry, dusty smell of countless dried herbs, a scent that is part hay, part spice rack. Underlying that is the smoky perfume of old wood smoke, permanently infused into the grass walls and the earthen floor from countless fires in the central hearth. And beneath it all is that same clean, earthy smell of the polished dung floor, a scent that is surprisingly grounding. It smells of the earth, of life, of cycles. You realize you've been breathing more deeply since you sat down. your lungs filling with this strange, ancient potpourri. Asterisk. Your gaze drifts to the walls again. Hanging from the curved wooden supports are bundles of plants in various states of drying. Some are leafy and green, recently harvested. Others are brittle and brown, tied with strips of leather or plant fiber. You see bunches of roots, gnarled and twisted like ancient hands. You see strips of bark, curled into tight scrolls. You even spot a few dried gourds that rattle faintly when a breeze drifts in through the low doorway. It is a pharmacy of the veld, a collection of nature's secrets, gathered with immense knowledge and care. Each bundle represents a solution to a problem of fever, a cough, a troubled mind, an unhappy spirit. Asterisk on the floor, arranged neatly against the curved wall, are the tools of her trade. You see a collection of clay pots, some small enough to hold in your palm, others large and round-bellied. They are unglazed, the color of the rich, red earth they were made from, and some are blackened with soot. Near them is a set of grinding stones. One is a large, smooth, hollowed-out stone, like a shallow bowl. The other is a smaller, rounded stone that fits perfectly in the hand. You can almost feel the meditative, rhythmic motion of grinding herbs against stone. A sound that has probably echoed in this hut for generations. This simple technology, the mortar and pestle, is one of humanity's oldest tools, a direct link to our earliest ancestors who first discovered the magic of crushing seeds and roots. Asterisk. You also notice a collection of animal horns, hollowed out and plugged with stoppers made of wood or beeswax. These were the original medicine vials, used to store prepared powders and ointments. They are beautiful objects, polished by years of handling. Some are small and delicate, from a diker or steenbok, while others are large and spiraled, perhaps from a kudu. One particularly quirky historical detail is that the contents of these horns were often a closely guarded secret. A healer might pass down the knowledge of what was in a specific horn, but not the recipe itself, making the horn and its contents an inseparable piece of intellectual property. Historians still wonder how much knowledge was lost simply because a specific horn was misplaced or broken. Asterisk near the horns. You see a small, tidy pile of animal skins and a few tortoise shells. These aren't just decorations. The skins might be used as pouches or as part of a ceremonial outfit. The tortoise shells, with their beautiful, patterned surfaces, could be used as bowls or containers for mixing delicate substances. Everything is repurposed, nothing is wasted. It's a philosophy of profound respect for the natural world. Asterisk. Your attention is drawn to a particular bundle hanging in the shadows. It's a collection of what look like small wooden sticks, bones, and perhaps a few seashells, all tied together with a leather cord. It looks like a strange wind chime. This is the healer's diagnostic toolkit, the amathimbo, the bones. They are not just random objects. Each piece has a specific meaning, a voice in the conversation with the ancestors. The act of throwing and reading the bones is a complex art of divination, a way to understand the unseen forces affecting a patient's health. It's a practice that strikes you as both mysterious and deeply intimate. Asterisk. The healer has been watching you take everything in. She seems to understand your curiosity. She reaches for one of the hanging bundles of herbs, a plant with long, silvery leaves. She gently rubs one of the leaves between her thumb and forefinger and holds it out for you. The scent is incredibly powerful wave of something between mint and eucalyptus, clean and sharp and invigorating. The plant is called It is one of the most sacred and widely used plants in southern African traditional medicine. It's burned as a cleansing incense to purify a space and to call the ancestors. It smoke a fragrant bridge to the spirit world. Inhaling its scent, you feel a sense of clarity, as if a window has been opened in your mind. It's a simple, powerful introduction to her world, offered without a single word. The scent of the crushed and fefo leaf still hangs in the air. a clean, bright note in the otherwise earthy atmosphere of the hut. The healer watches you, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching the corners of her mouth. She seems to have made a decision about you. With a slow, deliberate movement, she places the silvery leaf back into its bundle and then gestures, not with her hand, but with a slight tilt of her head, towards the grinding stones in the center of the room. It's not a command, but a clear and gentle invitation. An invitation to learn. Asterisk, you feel a flicker of surprise, followed by a wave of quiet excitement. You are being offered a glimpse into a world that is usually closed to outsiders. A world of knowledge passed down through an unbroken chain of memory and practice. To become an apprentice, a thwasa, to a healer like this, is a long and arduous journey. One that often involves years of discipline, ritual, and deep personal transformation. It is not a path one chooses lightly. Often, it is a path that chooses you, through dreams, signs, or a calling from the ancestors. Your invitation, it seems, is a much more casual, temporary affair. You're not being asked to dedicate your life, just to pay attention for a while. It's like being offered a guest pass to a very exclusive, very quiet club. Asterisk, you move from your stool and lower yourself to a grass mat near the central hearth, opposite her. The mat is surprisingly comfortable, woven from reeds that feel cool against your skin. She pushes the heavy, hollowed-out grinding stone towards you. It moves across the smooth floor with a soft, scraping sound. She then selects a few brittle, dried leaves from another bundle, something you don't recognize, and places them in the stone's shallow basin. Finally, she hands you the smaller, rounded, grinding stone. It feels heavy and cool in your palm, its surface worn smooth from countless hours of use. It fits your hand as if it were made for you. Asterisk, for a long moment, she simply looks at you, her gaze steady. She is waiting, not for you to begin, but for you to become still. You realize that your mind is still racing, cataloging, analyzing. You're thinking about what this means, what you should do, how you should act. Her silence is a gentle instruction to let all of that go. The first lesson of an apprentice is not about herbs or remedies. It is about presence. It is about learning to quiet the constant chatter of your own mind and simply be here, now, in this moment. You take a slow, deep breath, just as you did when you first sat down, and focus on the weight of the stone in your hand. Asterisk, when she sees the subtle shift in your posture, the slight relaxing of your shoulders, she nods. She then takes your hand, the one holding the stone, and guides it in a slow, circular motion inside the larger stone bowl. Her touch is light, but firm. She isn't just showing you the movement, she's showing you the feeling. The goal isn't to crush the leaves with brute force, but to persuade them into a powder with a steady, rhythmic pressure. It's a dance, not a battle. After a few rotations, she releases your hand, leaving you to continue on your own. Asterisk, you begin to grind, mimicking the circular motion she showed you. At first, you are clumsy. Your movements are jerky, and the stone makes a loud, grating sound against the bowl. The dry leaves skitter around, refusing to be crushed. It feels less like a meditative practice, and more like you're failing a very simple, very old video game. You glance up at her, a little embarrassed, but her expression is patient, unchanging. There is no judgment in her eyes, only quiet observation. Asterisk, you close your eyes for a moment and focus on the feeling. You adjust your grip, ease the pressure, and try to find the rhythm she had shown you. Slowly, something begins to shift. The grating sound softens into a gentle, rhythmic shushing. The leaves begin to break down, releasing a faint, sweet, and slightly bitter aroma. The work becomes less of a task and more of a meditation. Your arm begins to ache slightly, a dull burn that you welcome, as it anchors you even more firmly in the present moment. This process, you realize, is a core part of the medicine. The healer's intention, her focus, Her very energy is being infused into the remedy with every slow, deliberate rotation of the stone. Asterisk, this concept of intentionality is something historians and anthropologists often discuss. When an Inyanga prepares a remedy, it's not just a chemical process, it's a ritual act. A widely accepted historical fact is that healers would often speak or sing to the plants as they prepared them, whispering words of power and healing into the mixture. This wasn't seen as superstition, but as an essential step in activating the plant's spiritual energy. A lesser-known detail is that the specific time of day, the phase of the moon, and even the healer's own emotional state were considered crucial variables that could affect the potency of the medicine. You couldn't just whip up a remedy while you were feeling grumpy or distracted. The preparation demanded a state of calm and focus. Asterisk, you find a steady rhythm, the soft shush of the stone against stone becoming a hypnotic, comforting sound. Your mind, which was so busy just moments ago, begins to quiet down. The outside world, with all its demands and distractions, feels a million miles away. There is only the feel of the stone, the smell of the herbs, and the gentle presence of the woman sitting across from you. You open your eyes and find her watching you, and this time, you are certain you see a flicker of approval in her gaze. You haven't created a perfect, fine powder. You've probably done a terrible job by her standards, but you have, for a brief moment, found the quiet center, and that, it seems, was the real lesson. Your first morning as a healer's apprentice begins not with a sound, but with a change in the light. Long before the sun itself crests the hills, a soft, gray luminescence begins to seep through the woven grass walls of the hut where you slept. It's a gentle, persistent light that gradually nudges you awake, a far cry from the jarring blare of a modern alarm clock. You lie still for a moment, listening. The world outside is silent, save for the faint, high-pitched chirping of the first insects stirring in the pre-dawn cool. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and cold ashes from last night's fire. Asterisk, you rise and push aside the heavy hide flap that serves as a door. Stepping out into the hushed twilight, the homestead is still asleep. The beehive huts are dark, silent humps against the lightening sky. A thin blanket of mist clings to the ground, softening the edges of the world and muffling all sound. The only movement is a lone rooster, perched atop the thorny fence of the cattle kraal, looking indecisive about whether it's time to announce the day. He seems to be waiting for a cue. You get the feeling that even the roosters around here are more relaxed. Asterisk, the healer is already awake. You see her standing by the central cattle kraal, a silent, still figure looking east towards the horizon. She is not performing a grand ritual, just standing, observing, and being present as the world transitions from night to day. It's a moment of quiet communion. In Zulu cosmology, the rising of the sun is a potent and sacred event, a daily renewal of life and light. To be awake and witness it is to align oneself with the natural rhythms of the universe. It's a form of prayer that requires no words. Asterisk, she turns and sees you, giving a slight nod of acknowledgement. Her first instruction of the day is a simple gesture towards the large clay water pots that stand near her hut. Your first task. It's not a glamorous job. Your duty is to fetch water from the stream that runs at the bottom of the valley. You pick up one of the heavy pots. It's surprisingly cumbersome, even when empty. Balance it on your head, as you've seen the other women do, and immediately stumble, catching it just before it hits the ground. You decide to carry it in your arms, which feels far less elegant, but significantly safer for the pot. Asterisk, the walk to the stream is beautiful. The path is cool and damp under your bare feet, and the mist swirls around your ankles. As you descend, the sounds of the waking world grow. You hear the melodic calls of birds you don't recognize, and the grass is alive with the hum and buzz of insects. The stream is a shallow, clear ribbon of water, gurgling over smooth, gray stones. Filling the pot is a slow process, and carrying it back up the slope is a genuine workout. Your arms ache, and you have to stop several times to catch your breath. By the time you return to the homestead, the sun has just begun to peek over the hills, flooding the valley with golden light, and the rooster has finally found his voice. Asterisk, your next task is just as humble, tending the fire. The central hearth in the healer's hut is cold. You learn how to arrange the kindling just so, how to protect the precious, glowing embers from last night's fire that were carefully buried in the ash, and how to gently blow them back to life. It's a delicate, patient process. There are no matches, no lighters. Fire is a living thing that must be cared for, not simply created on demand. This reverence for fire is a deeply ancient human trait. For early societies, the hearth was the absolute center of the home, a source of warmth, light, protection from predators, and a place to cook food, making it more nutritious and safer to eat. Keeping the fire alive was a sacred and vital responsibility. Asterisk, once the fire is crackling softly, the healer hands you a small, shallow basket of sorghum grain. Your job is to sift through it, picking out any tiny stones or bits of chaff. It's meticulous, almost mindless work. Your fingers learn the feel of the smooth, round grains versus the sharp edges of a stray bit of grit. It's another exercise in mindfulness, disguised as a household chore. While you work, she begins to prepare a simple morning meal, a thin porridge made from the same grain. A fascinating, quirky detail of traditional Zulu cuisine is the near total absence of what we would consider sweet foods. Sugar was not a part of the diet. The flavors were savory, earthy, and sometimes fermented. The idea of a sweet breakfast pastry would have been utterly alien. Asterisk, as you both work in the quiet comfort of the hut, the homestead slowly comes to life. You hear the sounds of other fires being kindled, the soft chatter of voices, and the lowing of the cattle as they are led out of the kraal to pasture for the day. The entire community operates on a shared unspoken schedule, dictated by the sun and the needs of the animals. Historians and archaeologists still debate the exact division of labor in these homesteads. While it's generally accepted that women manage the domestic sphere, agriculture, food, preparation, and childcare, and men handled livestock and politics. There was likely a great deal of overlap and fluidity in these roles, far more than rigid historical models might suggest. Asterisk, your morning tasks are complete. You haven't learned about a single healing plant or mixed a single remedy. You've fetched water, made a fire, and cleaned some grain. Yet, you feel you've learned something essential. You've learned the rhythm of the day, the importance of small, deliberate actions. You've participated, in a minor way, in the quiet, steady pulse of life in the UMUZ. The healer seems to think so too. She serves you a small bowl of the warm porridge. It's simple, unsweetened, and deeply satisfying. As you eat, she finally speaks, her voice a low, gentle rasp. The plants, she says, will not speak to a hurried heart. It's the first piece of direct instruction she has given you, and it sinks in, deep and true. The morning's work wasn't a prelude to the lesson. It was the lesson. After the simple morning meal, the sun has climbed higher, burning off the last of the valley mist. The air is warm now, and the day has truly begun. The healer rises, and with a slight nod, she indicates that you are to follow her. You step out of the cool dimness of the hut into the full brightness of the African morning. She carries a woven grass basket and a small, sharp digging tool with a wooden handle. This is it, your first real lesson in the field, or rather, in the veld. The veld is the vast, open grassland that stretches in every direction, a seemingly uniform sea of amber grass. But you are about to learn that this apparent uniformity is an illusion. To a trained eye, it is not a field. It is a pharmacy, a pantry, and a library, all at once. Asterisk, you follow her out of the homestead, through the opening in the thorny acacia fence, and onto a narrow path that winds its way up the side of the hill. She walks with a slow, steady, and economical pace, her bare feet seeming to know the location of every stone and root. You, in contrast, feel clumsy, your steps uncertain. You're trying to watch your feet and watch her at the same time, a recipe for a twisted ankle. She doesn't look back to see if you're keeping up. She knows you are. Her presence is like a quiet magnet, pulling you along in her wake. Asterisk for a long time, she doesn't stop or speak. She is simply walking, and you soon realize that this, too, is part of the lesson. She is teaching you to observe, to look, not just at the big picture, the rolling hills, the vast blue sky, but at the small details, the way the wind makes patterns in the tall grass, the asymmetrical sprawl of a termite mound, the shadow of a hawk circling high overhead. You begin to notice the incredible diversity of the plant life at your feet. What looked like a single type of grass from a distance is actually a dozen different species. Some with fine, feathery tops, others with broad, sharp-edged leaves. And nestled among them are countless other small plants, wildflowers, and shrubs. Asterisk finally, she stops. She stands perfectly still for a moment, scanning the area around her. Then, she takes a few steps off the path and crouches down. You approach quietly and look over her shoulder. She is pointing to a small, unassuming plant with fuzzy, gray-green leaves and a tiny, almost invisible yellow flower. To you, it looks like a weed, something you would pull from your garden without a second thought. But to her, it is a treasure. She doesn't immediately dig it up. First, she simply observes it. Then, in a gesture that surprises you, she reaches out and gently touches one of its leaves, almost like a greeting. Asterisk, she begins to speak, her voice low and soft, explaining the plant's properties. This is Leonotis linoris, a plant you might know as lion's tail or wild daga. She explains that a tea made from its leaves can help with fevers, headaches, and coughs. It has a calming effect, she says, easing a troubled spirit. This is a widely known fact in ethnobotany. Lion's tail is recognized for its mild, psychoactive, and medicinal properties, containing compounds that have sedative and anti-inflammatory effects. But then she tells you something else, a piece of knowledge you wouldn't find in any scientific journal. She tells you that this plant likes to grow where there is sadness. It is drawn to places where there has been loss, and its purpose is to bring comfort. It is not just a collection of chemicals. It has a spirit, a personality, an intention. Asterisk before she harvests it, she performs a small ritual. She murmurs a few quiet words of thanks to the plant, acknowledging its life and the gift of its healing power. This is a crucial step. Harvesting a medicinal plant without permission from the plant's spirit and from the ancestors was considered a form of theft. It was believed that a plant taken without respect would not share its healing gifts. The medicine would be empty. A quirky, lesser-known belief was that some plants had to be harvested in a specific way. For example, only the leaves on the east-facing side could be picked, or the root could only be dug up after the first rain. These rules weren't arbitrary. They were part of a complex ecological and spiritual grammar. Asterisk. She uses her small digging tool to carefully loosen the soil around the roots, taking only a small portion of the plant. She never takes the whole thing, always leaving enough for it to recover and continue to grow. It's a perfect model of sustainable harvesting. Born not from scientific theory, but from a deep, instinctual understanding of the interconnectedness of all living things. She places the cutting gently into her basket and covers it with a large, cool leaf to protect it from the sun. Asterisk, as you continue your walk, she points out other plants, a thick, succulent aloe, its fleshy leaves filled with a soothing gel for burns and skin irritations, a gnarled root that, when boiled, helps with stomach ailments, a delicate fern that, when crushed, can be used to stop bleeding. For each one, she tells you its name, its use, and a little piece of its story. Historians continue to debate the sheer scale of this botanical knowledge. It's estimated that traditional healers in southern Africa utilized thousands of different plant species. This vast oral encyclopedia, passed down through generations, represented one of the most complex and sophisticated indigenous knowledge systems in the world. Yet it was never written down. You begin to see the veld not as a landscape, but as a language. Every plant is a word, a sentence, and a story that the earth is telling. The healer is not just a herbalist. She is a librarian, a reader of this living text. Your own ignorance is profound. You look at the plants around you and see only green shapes. She looks at the same plants and sees a world of meaning, a web of connections, a vast repository of healing power. As the sun climbs towards its zenith, you turn back toward the homestead, the basket now half full, and your mind completely full. You return to the quiet coolness of the hut, the bright sun, and the vast, open veld now a vivid memory. The healer carefully unpacks the woven basket, laying the freshly gathered plants on a clean grass mat. The air fills with a new chorus of scents: the sharp, medicinal smell of the lion's tail, the green watery aroma of the aloe, the earthy fragrance of the gnarled root. Each plant is treated with a quiet reverence, as if it were an honored guest. Your next lesson is about to begin, the art of preparation. This is where the raw potential of the plants is transformed into potent, usable medicine. It's a process that is part science, part art, and part magic. Your station is the same as before, at the heavy grinding stones. The healer hands you a few of the dried leaves you helped to grind during your first lesson. Your task is to turn them into a fine, consistent powder. As you settle into the familiar rhythmic work, she begins her own preparations. She takes the gnarled root. You collected its name. She tells you, is a Monday or African gingerand. Begins to wash it carefully in a bowl of water, brushing away every speck of red earth. It's a slow, meticulous cleaning. You can hear the soft whisk of the bristles against the rough bark of the root. Once it's clean, she takes a small, sharp knife and begins to shave off thin slivers of the bark. She doesn't just hack at it. Her movements are precise and economical, wasting nothing. Each sliver falls onto a flat, smooth stone. This African ginger is a powerful medicinal tool, known to be a remedy for everything from coughs and colds to asthma and influenza. Modern science has confirmed that its rhizomes are rich in potent anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial compounds. But for the healer, its power comes from its fiery spirit, its ability to chase the coldness of sickness from the body. While she works, you focus on your grinding. The soft, shushing sound of the stone fills the quiet hut. You find the rhythm more easily. This time, your arm and shoulder, remembering the motion. You aim for a consistency finer than sand, a powder that is almost like dust. It requires patience. Every time you think you're done, you realize there are still small, stubborn flakes of leaf clinging to their shape. You learn that good enough is not a concept that applies here. The medicine must be prepared with the utmost care and attention. Any sloppiness would be an insult to the plant's spirit and a disservice to the person who will receive the remedy. Next, the healer takes the thick, fleshy leaves of the aloe plant. She lays one on a wooden board and, with a single, clean slice, opens it lengthwise. The inside is a translucent, gelatinous marvel, glistening with moisture. She uses a seashell, its edge worn smooth, to scrape the clear gel into a small clay bowl. It's a surprisingly effective tool, the curved edge of the shell perfectly matching the inner curve of the leaf. This use of natural, found objects as tools is a hallmark of indigenous technologies. There's a quiet debate among historians about the extent to which such tools were modified versus simply chosen for their suitability. Was the shell just a conveniently shaped object, or was it carefully selected and perhaps even sharpened for this specific task? The answer is likely both a combination of clever opportunism and skilled craftsmanship. She now has 3 separate ingredients being prepared: your fine green powder, her slivers of ginger root, and the clear aloe gel. This is where the art of compounding begins. A healer's skill was not just in knowing which plant to use, but in knowing how to combine them. Just like a master chef, she understood which flavors or energies complemented each other. Some plants worked better together, their effects amplified. Others might counteract each other, or become toxic if mixed improperly. This knowledge was a complex, nuanced pharmacology, developed over centuries of trial, error, and careful observation. Asterisk, she takes a pinch of your finely ground powder and adds it to the bowl of aloe gel. Then, she adds a few of the ginger root slivers. She gestures for you to watch as she begins to stir the mixture with a small, smooth stick. She stirs in a slow, deliberate, circular motion, always in the same direction. As she stirs, she begins to hum, a low monotonic sound deep in her chest. It's not a song with words, but a vibration, a sound of pure intention. You feel the hair on your arms stand up slightly. She is not just mixing ingredients. She is activating them, awakening the spirits of the plants, and asking them to work together. This is perhaps the most crucial step, the one that no scientific analysis of the final product could ever measure. Asterisk, a quirky detail about the preparation of these remedies is the use of animal products. While the foundation was botanical, many mixtures included things like animal fats, powdered bone, or even specific types of dried insects. These additions were not random. Each was believed to add a specific quality or power to the medicine. A remedy for courage might include a pinch of powdered lion bone, not because of any chemical property, but to invoke the spirit and bravery of the lion. It was a form of sympathetic magic, where light produces like. Asterisk, the mixture in the bowl is now a smooth, greenish paste, and the air is filled with a potent, medicinal aroma. The healer scoops a small amount into one of the hollowed-out horns you saw earlier and seals it with a plug of beeswax. The medicine is ready. She has taken 3 simple things from the earth and, through knowledge, skill, and intention, transformed them into a source of healing. You look down at your own hands, lightly dusted with green powder. You've only played a tiny part in the process, but you feel a profound sense of connection to it. A quiet satisfaction in the slow, meaningful work. As the afternoon sun begins its slow descent, casting long, soft shadows across the homestead, a different kind of lesson begins. The work of grinding and mixing is done for the day. The newly prepared remedies are stored away in their horn and clay containers. The healer sits on her grass mat by the now smoldering hearth, and she gestures for you to sit as well. The energy in the hut shifts. The focus moves from the physical world of plants and powders to the unseen world of spirits, ancestors, and dreams. This, you are about to learn, is the other half of her practice. The invisible foundation upon which all her herbal knowledge rests. Asterisk, she begins by telling you about dreams. Her tone is not that of a storyteller spinning a fanciful tale. She speaks of dreams as if they are a real place, a landscape one can visit, as tangible and important as the veld you walked through this morning. For her, and for Zulu culture as a whole, dreams are not the random, chaotic firing of synapses that modern neuroscience might suggest. They are a primary channel of communication with the Amatlozi, the ancestral spirits. It is in dreams, she explains, that the ancestors offer guidance, warnings, and, most importantly for a healer, diagnostic information and recipes for new remedies. Asterisk, she tells you that a healer does not invent a cure. It is revealed to them. An ancestor might appear in a dream, leading the healer to a specific plant in the veld, showing them exactly which part to use and how to prepare it. This is how the vast pharmacopoeia of knowledge was built and maintained, not through written texts, but through a continuous living dialogue with the spirit world. To ignore a dream would be unthinkable, a dangerous act of disrespect, that could sever one's connection to the ancestors and render their healing work powerless. Asterisk. You think about your own dreams. Nonsensical narratives about being late for an exam or flying through your childhood home. You've always treated them as a kind of mental junk mail, interesting to glance at but ultimately destined for the trash. The healer's perspective is a profound reframing. She is teaching you to listen to the quiet, nocturnal murmurings of your own soul. The idea that your subconscious could be a source of wisdom is not a foreign concept to you, but the idea that it is a literal meeting place with the spirits of your deceased relatives is a beautiful and slightly unsettling thought. Asterisk. A widely accepted historical fact is the central role of dream interpretation in many traditional African societies. It was a sophisticated and nuanced practice. The symbolism was not universal. The meaning of a dream, image a snake, a river, a tree depended heavily on the context, the dreamer, and the specific ancestral lineage. A snake in one person's dream might be a warning, while in another's, it could represent a powerful healing spirit. This is why a diviner or an elder was often consulted to help unravel a particularly significant or confusing dream. Asterisk. The healer shares a quirky, lesser-known detail about the training of a Twasa, or apprentice healer. A key part of their initiation involves learning to control and navigate their dreams. They would be taught specific rituals and meditations to perform before sleep, to encourage meaningful dreams, and to remember them with perfect clarity upon waking. They might drink a specific herbal tea, like one made from the plant Silene capensis, famously known as African dream root, which is believed to induce vivid and prophetic dreams. The apprentice would then have to report their dreams to their mentor each morning for analysis and discussion. It was, in essence, a dream school, where the curriculum was delivered by the ancestors themselves. Asterisk. Historians and anthropologists still gently debate the nature of these dream experiences. Were they purely psychological phenomena, shaped by cultural expectations and beliefs? Or were they something else, a genuine connection to a non-physical reality, or a collective unconscious? The healer, of course, would see no debate. For her, the ancestors are as real as the grinding stone in front of you. They are not gone. They have simply changed their form. They remain active and concerned members of the family, watching over their descendants, offering wisdom, and occasionally making demands. Asterisk. She explains that the ancestors communicate not just through grand, epic dreams, but also through small signs and symbols in the waking world. A particular bird that sings outside your hut, a feeling of unease, for no reason, a sudden, inexplicable thought. All of these can be messages. The key is to cultivate a state of constant, gentle awareness. It's about learning to read the subtle language of the world around you, to notice the patterns and synchronicities that a distracted mind would miss. This is the heart of her diagnostic skill. When a patient comes to her, she is not just listening to their description of physical symptoms. She is listening to their dreams, observing their energy, and opening herself to any messages the ancestors might send regarding the root cause of the illness. Asterisk. As she speaks, the light inside the hut grows warmer and deeper. The setting sun is painting the sky outside in shades of orange and pink, and this warm light filters through the grass walls, making the small space glow. The healer's face is illuminated, the lines and wrinkles seeming to hold the wisdom of every story she is telling. You have not learned a practical skill in this lesson. You haven't ground a single leaf or mixed a single paste. Instead, you have been given a new way of seeing. The world, she has shown you, is not just what you can see and touch. There is another layer, a deeper, invisible reality that is constantly speaking. The only question is whether you are quiet enough to hear it. The conversation about dreams flows seamlessly into a deeper discussion about the ancestors themselves. As the last light of day fades from the sky, the healer lights the central fire. She doesn't use a match or a lighter, of course. She carefully uncovers the embers she buried in the ash this morning, places a few slivers of dry kindling on them, and blows gently, her breath a soft, steady stream. In moments, a small, bright flame flickers to life, pushing back the gathering darkness and casting a warm, dancing glow across the interior of the hut. The firelight softens her features and makes the shadows in the corners of the room seem to sway and breathe. She explains that the Amadozi asterisk, the ancestors, are not distant, godlike figures. They are family. They are the recently departed parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, who continue to exist in a spiritual realm that is parallel to and deeply intertwined with the world of the living. The relationship is one of mutual respect and interdependence. The living honor the ancestors through rituals, offerings, and by remembering their names. In return, the ancestors provide protection, guidance, and good fortune. It's a beautiful, ongoing conversation between generations, a chain of connection that death cannot break. Asterisk, you realize that this belief system provides an incredible sense of comfort and continuity. You are never truly alone. Your family is not just the handful of living relatives you can see, but a vast, invisible cloud of witnesses who have gone before you, all of whom have a vested interest in your well-being. It's the ultimate support network. When you face a problem, you don't just rely on your own limited wisdom. You have access to the collective wisdom of all who came before you. Asterisk, the healer describes how to speak to the ancestors. It's not about loud, formal prayers shouted at the sky. It's a quiet, personal communication. You can speak to them in your mind, or in a soft whisper. You might address a specific ancestor, your grandmother perhaps, when seeking comfort or advice on a family matter. The most common way to formalize this communication is through a small offering. She points to a spot at the very back of the hut, opposite the doorway. This area, the Umsamo, is the most sacred part of the dwelling. It is the place where the ancestors are believed to reside when they visit the home. It is here that offerings of traditional beer, a pinch of snuff, or a small portion of a meal are left for them. Asterisk, this practice of honoring ancestors is, of course, a widely accepted historical fact, common to countless cultures around the world, but it was particularly central to the social and spiritual fabric of the Zulu people. Everything from a successful harvest to the birth of a healthy child was seen as a blessing from the ancestors, and any misfortune was often interpreted as a sign of their displeasure. Maintaining a good relationship with them was, therefore, not just a spiritual duty, but a practical necessity for a happy life. Asterisk, the healer then shares a more subtle, quirky detail. She explains that the ancestors are particularly fond of the smell of certain things. The smoke from the sacred infefo plant, which you smelled on your first day, is like a fragrant invitation, calling them to draw near. Another smell they enjoy is the scent of the family's cattle. This is one of the reasons the cattle kraal is located at the very heart of the homestead. The cattle are a living link to the ancestral line, as herds were passed down from generation to generation. The warm, earthy smell of the cows was a comforting and constant reminder to the ancestors that their family was still present and prosperous. This idea that a smell could be a form of communication with the spirit world is a wonderfully sensory and poetic concept. Asterisk, as she speaks, you can hear the lowing of the cattle being settled into the kraal for the night. The sound, which before was just a background noise, now has a new layer of meaning. It's the sound of wealth, of security, and of ancestral connection. The entire homestead, you realize, is a physical manifestation of this belief system. The circular layout, the central position of the cattle, the sacred space in each hut, it all works together to maintain a constant, harmonious connection between the living and the dead. Asterisk. Historians and sociologists still debate the precise function of ancestor veneration in societies like this. Was it primarily a religious practice, a way of explaining the unexplainable, or was it more of a social mechanism, a way of reinforcing family lineage? respect for elders, and community cohesion. The healer would likely find this distinction meaningless. For her, religion, family, and community are not separate categories. They are all woven from the same thread. The ancestors are the family is the community, and this entire web of relationships is the foundation of a spiritual life. Asterisk, the fire crackles and pops, sending a shower of bright orange sparks up towards the smoke hole in the roof. The healer falls silent, her lesson complete. She simply sits, her gaze soft, looking into the flames. You follow her lead, watching the fire dance and shift. You feel a profound sense of peace. The hut feels safe and warm, a small, sacred space protected from the vast, dark world outside. You think about your own ancestors, the faces you know from old photographs, and the names you've seen on family trees. For the first time, you think of them not as static figures from the past, but as a quiet, loving presence, a silent chorus standing just behind you. You feel their strength, their resilience, and their gentle, unspoken support. The next day, a visitor arrives at the homestead. It is a young man from a neighboring Umuzi, his face etched with worry. His father is sick, and he has come to seek the healer's wisdom. This is not a planned lesson. It is a real consultation, and the healer allows you to be a quiet observer, sitting in the corner of the hut, making yourself as small and unobtrusive as possible. This is a rare privilege. The relationship between a healer and a patient is deeply private, and your presence is a sign of the trust you have begun to earn. Asterisk, the young man speaks in a low, respectful tone, describing his father's ailment, persistent cough, a weakness in his limbs, and a deep, unshakable sadness. The healer listens intently. She does not interrupt. Her listening is an active, focused state, more than just hearing the words. She watches his posture, the tension in his hands, the flicker of fear in his eyes. She is gathering information not just from his story, but from his entire being. After he has finished, she does not immediately offer a herbal remedy. The physical symptoms are only one part of the story. First, she must understand the root cause, the spiritual imbalance that is manifesting as illness in the physical body. For this, she must consult the ancestors. Asterisk, she reaches for the bundle you noticed on your first day, the one that looked like a strange wind chime. She unties the leather cord, and a collection of small, fascinating objects tumbles onto a prepared animal skin laid on the floor. This is the amathembo, the bones. As they lie on the skin, you see the collection more clearly. There are small animal bones, vertebrae, knuckle bones, jaw bones from small rodents. There are seashells, a few unusually shaped stones, a piece of carved wood, and even a lion's claw. It's a seemingly random assortment of curiosities, but you know that to her, this is a sacred alphabet. Asterisk, this practice of divination by throwing bones, known as osteomancy, is one of the most iconic and widely recognized aspects of Southern African healing traditions. The precise origins of the practice are lost to time, but it is an ancient art. Each healer's set of bones is unique, collected and assembled over a lifetime. The bones are activated or awakened through ritual, and it's believed that they become a direct conduit for the voices of the ancestors. Asterisk. The healer takes the pile of objects into her cupped hands. She closes her eyes and begins to whisper, her voice a low rhythmic chant. She is calling her ancestors, introducing the young man and his problem, and asking for their clarity and insight. She gently blows her breath, her umoya, over the bones, infusing them with the question. The air in the hut grows thick with concentration. The only sound is the soft clicking of the bones as she shakes them in her hands. Then, with a sudden, decisive gesture, she casts them out onto the hide. Asterisk, they scatter in a complex, seemingly random pattern. But to the healer, it is not random at all. It is a sentence, a story, a map. She leans forward, her eyes scanning the arrangement with intense focus. Her work now is to interpret this sacred text. A long, tense silence fills the hut. She is not just looking. She is listening, sensing, allowing the meaning to arise. She begins to speak, her voice soft but sure. The ancestors are troubled, she says, pointing to a particular knuckle bone that has landed far from the others. There is a dispute, a forgotten promise. She points to a small, white seashell. It concerns the family of his mother. She explains that each object has a meaning. The lion's claw represents a powerful male figure, the head of the family, the sick father. Its position, close to a twisted piece of wood that signifies conflict, is not good. The seashells often represent the maternal line or issues related to water and purity. The way they have fallen tells a story of disharmony. A lesser known, quirky detail is that some of the bones in a diviner's set were not from animals at all. Some sets included modern objects, like dominoes, dice, or even old coins. A diviner might see a bus ticket on the ground and feel a strong pull to add it to their collection. This might seem strange, but it speaks to the fluid and adaptable nature of the practice. The ancestors, it was believed, could speak through any medium, ancient or modern. The meaning of the bus ticket would be revealed to the healer through dreams or intuition. Perhaps it would come to represent a journey, or a visitor from a faraway city. Historians and anthropologists still debate the mechanics of bone divination. Is it a form of cold reading, where the diviner uses intuition and sharp observation to tell the client what they want to hear? Is it a psychological tool, a way of using archetypal symbols to unlock the patient's own subconscious knowledge of the problem? Or is it, as the practitioners believe, a genuine act of spiritual communication? The healer would say it is all of these things, and none of them. It is a mystery, a sacred conversation, and it works. The healer continues her reading, her finger tracing the invisible lines of connection between the scattered objects. She determines that the root of the father's illness is not physical. He has offended the spirit of his wife's deceased grandfather by failing to perform a customary ritual in his honor. The ancestor is not angry in a vengeful way. He is simply sad and has turned his back on the family, withdrawing his protective influence. This has left the father vulnerable to the physical illness that has taken hold. The solution, therefore, is not just a herbal tea for the cough. The first and most important step is to appease the ancestor. The healer gives the young man a set of detailed instructions. The family must brew traditional beer, speak the grandfather's name to thank him, and make a humble offering. Only after this ritual is completed should the father begin to take the herbal medicine she will prepare. The remedy for the body cannot work until the remedy for the spirit is administered. The young man listens, his face a mixture of relief and understanding. He finally has a clear path forward. He thanks her profusely, and as he leaves the hut, you see that the deep lines of worry on his face have already begun to soften. In the days that follow the divination session, you begin to see the healer's role in the community in a new light. You had thought of her primarily as a doctor, someone people visit when they are physically sick, but you quickly learn that her work extends far beyond that. Her hut is not just a clinic, it is the emotional and spiritual heart of the homestead, a place of counsel, comfort, and quiet guidance. People visit her for all manner of reasons, and very few of them involve a cough or a fever. One morning, a young woman arrives, her eyes downcast. She sits with the healer for a long time, speaking in a low, quiet voice. You cannot hear her words, but you can feel her sadness. She is not sick in body, but in spirit. Her first child is due to be married and will soon leave the homestead, and the mother is grappling with a profound sense of loss and anxiety. The healer does not offer a remedy or a ritual. She simply listens. She sits with the woman in her sorrow, her presence a calm, steady anchor in the storm of the young mother's emotions. After a long silence, the healer begins to speak, her voice a gentle murmur. She shares a story, a traditional tale about the cycles of life, about how a river must let its water flow to the sea so that new rains can come. It's a simple metaphor, but it is offered with such gentle wisdom that you see the young woman's shoulders relax. She leaves, not with a pouch of herbs, but with a lighter heart. Later that same day, two elderly men come to the hut. They are brothers who have been arguing over the ownership of a calf. The dispute is small, but it has grown, fueled by pride and stubbornness, and it now threatens to create a rift in their family. They do not come for a judgment. They come for mediation. The healer serves them a pinch of snuff from her small, polished wooden box. They take it in the ritual way, a gesture of mutual respect that immediately lowers the tension in the room. She allows both men to speak their piece, ensuring each one feels heard. She doesn't take sides. Instead, she reminds them of their shared ancestry, of their duty to their father's name, and of the importance of harmony within the homestead. Her role is not to be a judge, but to be a mirror, reflecting their own better natures back at them. They leave together, still not smiling, but walking silently. The hard edges of their anger softened. This role as a mediator and counselor is a widely accepted historical aspect of a traditional healer's function in a society without formal legal courts or therapy offices. Figures like the Inyanga were crucial for maintaining social cohesion. They were the keepers of customary law and the arbiters of communal harmony. Their authority came not from any official position, but from the deep respect they commanded, a respect earned through wisdom, integrity, and their perceived connection to the ancestors. You also see the healer's role as an educator. Children will often stop by her hut, drawn by her calm presence. She teaches them the names of the plants that grow around the homestead, not just the medicinal ones, but all of them. She tells them which berries are safe to eat, and which will give them a stomachache. She shares small, simple stories, fables that carry important lessons about kindness, honesty, and respect for nature. It's a gentle, informal education, woven into the fabric of daily life. A lesser-known, quirky detail of this educational role was the use of riddles and proverbs. Zulu culture, like many other African cultures, has a rich oral tradition filled with clever, often humorous proverbs that teach complex social and moral lessons in a memorable way. The healer might ask a child, "What is the great river that has no end?" The answer, "The path." It's a simple riddle that teaches a profound lesson about life's journey. Or she might quote a proverb like, "You cannot chase two antelopes at once," to a young person struggling with indecision. These were not just quaint sayings. They were sophisticated pedagogical tools for transmitting wisdom. As you observe all these interactions, you realize that the healer's most powerful medicine is often not a plant at all. It is her presence. It is the safe, non-judgmental space she creates in her quiet hut, in a world of close-knit community living, where everyone knows everyone else's business. Her hut is a sanctuary, a place where people can show their vulnerability without fear of gossip or reprisal. The deep trust the community places in her is absolute. Historians and sociologists still explore the complex social dynamics that allowed figures like the Inyanga to hold such a unique and trusted position. Was it purely their spiritual authority, or did their practical skills and deep psychological insight play a more significant role? The debate often circles around the separation of the sacred and the secular, a distinction that likely would have made no sense to the healer or her community. Her ability to mend a broken bone, her wisdom in mediating a dispute, and her power to speak with the ancestors were not separate skills. They were all different facets of the same deep well of knowledge, different expressions of her role as a caretaker of the community's total well-being, social and spiritual. As evening approaches, You help the healer tidy the hut. You sweep the smooth earthen floor with a handmade broom of stiff grasses. The work is simple, quiet, and satisfying. You feel a sense of belonging you haven't felt before, a quiet pride in being a small part of this place. The healer may be the one who grinds the herbs and reads the bones, but you now understand that the entire community is involved in the process of healing, simply by creating and maintaining this web of trust, respect, and mutual care. A few days later, a palpable sense of gentle excitement begins to ripple through the homestead. A young couple, whose hut is just a few doors down from the healers, has welcomed their first child, a healthy baby boy. The community is overjoyed, and preparations begin for the small, important ceremony that will welcome the infant into the family and place him under the protection of the ancestors. The healer is, naturally, at the center of these preparations, and as her apprentice, you are given small, meaningful tasks to perform. This is a chance to see her work not in the context of sickness or dispute, but in the context of joy and new beginnings. Asterisk, the ceremony is not a grand, elaborate affair. It is an intimate, family-focused ritual, filled with quiet symbolism. Your first task is to help the baby's grandmother brew the uchwala, the traditional sorghum beer. You spend the morning in her warm, smoky cooking hut, helping to stir the thick, sweet-smelling mash in a giant clay pot over a low fire. The brewing of this beer is an art form in itself, a slow, patient process of fermentation that takes several days. This beer is more than just an alcoholic beverage. It is a sacred substance, considered a food of the ancestors. To share a pot of uchwala is to share a moment of communion with both the living and the dead. The frothy, tangy brew is a symbol of celebration, hospitality, and social connection. Asterisk, while the beer bubbles and ferments, the healer sends you on a specific errand. You are to go back to the veld, not with a digging tool, but just with your basket. She instructs you to gather the softest, greenest mosses you can find growing on the shaded side of a particular cluster of rocks near the stream. She also asks you to find a specific type of white wildflower, small and delicate, that grows only in that damp, sheltered place. She describes it to you with such perfect detail that you feel you could find it with your eyes closed. Your journey to the stream feels different this time. You are not just a student, following and observing. You have been given a specific, trusted responsibility. You find the moss, a vibrant, velvety carpet of green, and the small, star-like flowers, and you gather them with care, feeling the weight of the trust she has placed in you. Asterisk, when you return, the healer shows you what to do. You help her weave a small, soft bracelet from fresh reeds. Into this bracelet, she carefully threads the tiny white wildflowers. It's a beautiful, fragrant little thing, a piece of the living earth, to be worn by the newest member of the family. The soft moss you gathered will be used to create a gentle bed for the infant during the ceremony. These natural elements are not just decorations. They are symbolic. The green, living moss represents a long and healthy life, and the white flowers signify purity and the blessings of the ancestors. Asterisk A. Widely accepted historical fact is the importance of naming ceremonies in many African cultures. A name was not just a label, it was a reflection of the family's hopes for the child. The circumstances of their birth, or an honorific for a specific ancestor. The naming of a child was a deeply significant event that officially integrated them into the lineage. Often, a diviner would be consulted to help choose the right name, one that would please the ancestors and ensure the child's good fortune. Asterisk. The healer's role in this ceremony is to prepare a special protective charm for the infant. You watch as she works, grinding a tiny amount of several different ingredients into a fine powder. The recipe is a secret, known only to her. A quirky, lesser-known detail of these protective remedies, known as intelasi, is that they were not always meant to be ingested. This particular mixture, she explains, will be rubbed into small, almost invisible incisions made on the baby's joints, the wrists, the ankles, the neck. This practice, a form of inoculation or scarification, was believed to infuse the child's body with spiritual protection, making them strong and resilient against sickness and malevolent spirits. It was a physical and spiritual shield, applied in the first few days of life. Asterisk historians and archaeologists still debate the exact antiquity and spread of such ritual inoculation practices. While the symbolic intent is clear, some scholars suggest that these practices may have also had a genuine physiological effect, perhaps stimulating the infant's immune system in a way that is not yet fully understood by modern science. It's a fascinating intersection of ritual, belief, and what might be an ancient form of folk immunology. Asterisk, as the sun begins to set, casting a warm, gentle light over the homestead, everything is ready. The family gathers inside their hut. The air is filled with the rich, yeasty smell of the freshly decanted sorghum beer. The baby's father has kindled a small, pure fire in the hearth. The mood is not somber or overly formal. It is warm, loving, and joyful. The healer enters, carrying the small bracelet, the protective powder, and a small, sharp thorn she will use to make the incisions. She moves with a quiet, confident grace. You are invited to sit just inside the doorway, a silent witness to this beautiful, intimate moment of welcome. The ceremony is about to begin, and you feel a deep sense of peace, privileged to be a part of this circle of life. The interior of the family's hut is warm and crowded, filled with the soft murmur of happy voices. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, brewing beer, and the clean, sweet smell of a newborn. The baby, wrapped in a soft animal skin, is passed from the mother to the grandmother, his tiny perfect face serene in the flickering firelight. He seems completely untroubled by the attention. The ceremony begins not with a grand pronouncement, but with a simple, foundational sound, the slow, steady beat of a drum. Asterisk, the baby's grandfather is the drummer. He holds a small, hide-covered drum between his knees, and he begins to tap out a rhythm with the palms of his hands. It's a simple, hypnotic beat, thump-thump. It's not a rhythm for dancing. It's a rhythm for breathing. It is the sound of a human heartbeat, the first sound any of us ever hear, the universal lullaby. As the beat settles into the warm air of the hut, a quiet calm descends upon the small gathering. The soft chatter ceases, and everyone seems to sync their own inner rhythm to the gentle, persistent pulse of the drum. Asterisk, the healer takes her place near the hearth. The baby is gently placed on the bed of soft green moss you gathered earlier. He looks impossibly small and fragile against the vibrant green. The healer begins her work, her movements economical and full of a gentle, practiced confidence. She takes the small, fragrant bracelet of reeds and wildflowers and ties it carefully around the infant's tiny wrist. It is his first gift from the living world, a symbol of his connection to the earth that will sustain him. Asterisk, then comes the most delicate part of the ritual. She takes the sharp thorn and, dipping it into the protective powder, makes a series of tiny, almost bloodless incisions on the baby's skin at his wrists, his ankles, and at the soft spot at the base of his neck. The baby doesn't even seem to notice, his face calm, perhaps soothed by the steady rhythm of the drum. She rubs the last of the gray powder into these marks, sealing the spiritual protection into his very being. This practice, which might seem strange or harsh to a modern eye, is performed with such love and gentle precision that it feels like an act of profound care, a sacred vaccination against the unseen dangers of the world. Asterisk, the drumbeat continues, a constant, grounding presence. The use of drumming in healing and spiritual ceremonies is, of course, a widely accepted historical fact across countless cultures. The resonant frequencies of a drum can have a powerful effect on the human body and mind, altering brainwave patterns, inducing a light trance state, and creating a sense of unity and shared experience among a group. For the people in this hut, The drum is not just making music, it is tuning the atmosphere, creating a sacred space where the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds is thin. Asterisk, a lesser known, quirky detail about traditional Zulu music is its polyrhythmic complexity. While the grandfather's beat is simple and steady, a larger ceremonial gathering would involve multiple drummers and singers, each contributing a different rhythmic or melodic line. The result is a sound that is incredibly rich and layered, a complex sonic tapestry that can seem chaotic to an unaccustomed ear but is in fact highly structured. The idea was not for everyone to be on the same beat, but for each individual rhythm to contribute to a larger, more complex whole, a perfect metaphor for the ideal community. Asterisk, now the baby's father steps forward. He holds a small clay bowl filled with water from the stream. He dips his finger in the water and touches it to the baby's lips. "Be as clear and as true as this water," he whispers. Then the mother does the same, offering a drop of milk from her own breast. "Be nourished and loved always," she says. Each family member present comes forward to offer a similar small, symbolic blessing. One offers a pinch of salt for a life full of flavor. Another offers a single grain of sorghum for a life free from hunger. Asterisk, the drum beat never falters. Thump thump. It is the thread that ties all these small, individual moments together. It is the steady, beating heart of the family, of the community, of the ancestors who are understood to be present, watching, and smiling upon this scene. Historians and ethnomusicologists still debate the meaning of specific rhythms. While some rhythms were clearly associated with specific events weddings, funerals, many were more fluid, their emotional content depending on the context and the skill of the drummer. The grandfather's rhythm tonight is one of pure, uncomplicated love, a steady affirmation of life. Asterisk, finally, the naming itself takes place. The grandmother, who is the matriarch of the family, holds the baby up towards the smoke hole in the roof, as if presenting him to the sky and the spirit world. She speaks his name aloud for the first time, her voice clear and strong. The name is a tribute to a great-grandfather, a respected figure known for his wisdom and generosity. In naming the child, they are not just giving him a label, they are giving him a legacy, a set of values to live up to, and a powerful ancestral ally who will take a special interest in his well-being. Asterisk, as his name echoes in the small, warm space, the drum beat slowly, gently, fades to silence. The formal part of the ceremony is over. A large clay pot of the freshly brewed beer is brought forward, and the celebration begins. The mood is light, joyful, and deeply peaceful. You sit in your corner, a quiet observer, feeling the warmth of the fire, the lingering pulse of the drum, and the profound, unspoken love that fills this small, sacred space. As the joyous celebration in the family hut winds down, people begin to drift back to their own homes, their voices soft in the cool night air. The homestead settles into a deep, peaceful quiet. The moon has risen, a bright silver disk in a sky sprinkled with countless stars. The only sounds are the gentle chirping of crickets and the occasional soft lowing of a cow shifting in the central kraal. The healer gestures for you to follow her, not back into her own hut, but towards the communal fireplace, a large, open hearth in the center of the homestead that is used for larger gatherings. The main fire has died down to a bed of glowing, orange embers that pulse with a gentle, breathing rhythm. The warmth they radiate is a soft, comforting blanket in the cool night. The healer adds a few small, dry logs to the embers, and soon a small clean flame begins to dance, its light pushing back the darkness. She sits on a low, carved stool, the firelight flickering across her face, making the intricate map of her wrinkles seem to shift and change. She indicates a spot for you on a smooth, flat stone nearby. This is the time for stories. With the day's work and ceremonies complete, the community would often gather around the fire like this. It was a time for connection, for sharing news, and, most importantly, for the telling of stories. Oral storytelling was the primary form of entertainment, education, and cultural transmission. There were no books, no screens, no distractions. There was only the fire, the darkness, and the magic of the human voice. This tradition of fireside storytelling is, of course, a universal and ancient human practice, the original theater and library rolled into one. The healer begins to speak, her voice lower and softer than usual, perfectly suited to the quiet intimacy of the moment. She is not sharing a piece of practical knowledge now, but a myth. These are the traditional folk tales, fables, and creation myths that explain the nature of the world, the origins of customs, and the relationship between humans, animals, and the spirit world. The story she chooses to tell tonight is a gentle one, a myth about how the chameleon was sent by the Creator to bring a message of eternal life to humankind. She describes the chameleon in a wonderfully affectionate and humorous way. He was a slow, deliberate creature, easily distracted. He took his important mission very seriously, but his journey was comically slow. He would stop to taste a particularly delicious fly, his long tongue shooting out with a comical thwip. He would pause to change his color, to match a beautiful flower, admiring his own reflection in a drop of dew. You find yourself smiling in the darkness. The healer is a masterful storyteller, her hands painting pictures in the air, her voice shifting to mimic the slow, ponderous speech of the chameleon. This is a widely known myth in southern African folklore, but the healer adds a quirky, lesser-known detail to her telling. She explains that the chameleon's slow, rocking walk, that peculiar back-and-forth motion, is not a sign of indecision. He is actually testing the ground in front of him to make sure it is firm. He is the most careful and cautious of all creatures, a quality that made him a poor messenger, but a wise soul. It's a charming reinterpretation of the animal's strange gait, turning a perceived flaw into a virtue. As the chameleon ambled along, another much faster creature was sent with a different message. A swift, slippery lizard was dispatched to tell humankind that their lives would be short, that death would be a part of their world. The lizard, being fast and focused, darted across the land and delivered his unhappy message first. By the time the slow, careful chameleon finally arrived, panting and proud, to deliver his good news of eternal life, it was too late. The words of the lizard had already been heard and had set the pattern for the world, and that, the healer concludes with a soft sigh, is why people must die. The story is over. She doesn't offer a moral or an explanation. She allows the story to settle in the quiet air, its gentle melancholy and whimsical charm hanging between you. The fire crackles softly. Historians and folklorists who study these myths often debate their true meaning. Is the story of the chameleon a simple etiological myth, an explanation for the existence of death? Or is it a more complex parable about the consequences of hesitation, the nature of fate, or even a critique of a society that values speed over deliberation? The beauty of the story is that it can be all of these things. Its meaning is not fixed. It lives and breathes in the space between the storyteller and the listener. You look into the glowing embers, thinking about the slow, well-meaning chameleon. The story isn't tragic. It's tinged with a gentle sadness, but it's also filled with a deep, accepting wisdom. It frames death not as a punishment or a cosmic mistake, but as a kind of cosmic misunderstanding, a message delivered out of order. There is a sense of peace in this. It is simply the way things are. The healer seems to be watching you, gauging your reaction to the tale. Sharing a story is an intimate act. She has shared a piece of her culture, her worldview, her soul with you. In the warm, flickering light of the fire, under the vast, silent canopy of the African night, you feel a connection that transcends your different worlds. You are just two people, sharing a fire and a story, participating in a ritual that is as old as humanity itself. The logs on the fire shift and settle, sending a fresh shower of sparks spiraling up into the infinite darkness. like tiny, fleeting stars returning to the sky. The fire has burned down once more, its bright, dancing flames receding into a soft, pulsating bed of crimson embers. The warmth is gentle now, a quiet, radiant heat that keeps the cool night air at bay. The healer rises slowly from her stool, her movements telling you that the day and your time together is coming to an end. She doesn't need to say anything. You understand. You both stand for a moment, looking at the dying fire, two silent figures in the vast, quiet dark of the homestead. The moon is high in the sky now, casting a soft, milky light over the sleeping beehive huts, their curved shapes silvered and serene. She turns and begins the slow walk back to her hut. You fall into step beside her. The ground is cool beneath your feet, the dust of the pathways settled by the night dew. As you walk, you look up. The sky above you is breathtaking. Away from the light pollution of any city, the heavens are revealed in their full, staggering glory. The Milky Way is not a faint, hazy smudge. It is a brilliant, thick river of light, a celestial cloud of impossible density, splashed across the dome of the sky. The stars don't just twinkle. They burn with a fierce, cold fire, in shades of diamond white, sapphire blue, and pale, fiery orange. It feels less like you are looking up at the sky, and more like you are standing on the edge of the universe, looking in. The healer stops and follows your gaze upward. She, too, looks at the stars, but you get the sense she is not just admiring their beauty. She is reading them. For the Zulu, as for many ancient cultures, the sky was a calendar, a clock, and a map. The movements of the sun, moon, and stars governed the cycles of planting and harvesting, the timing of rituals, and the navigation of long journeys. The regular, predictable turning of the heavens was a source of order and stability in a world that could often be unpredictable. This sophisticated indigenous astronomy is a well-documented historical fact, a science developed through millennia of patient, naked-eye observation. She points a long, elegant finger towards a familiar cluster of stars. You recognize it as Orion's belt, but she calls it Uthingo, the rainbow. She explains that when those three stars are seen rising in the evening, it is a sign that the season of rains is approaching and it is time to begin preparing the fields for planting. She then points to another bright star, low on the horizon. That star, she says, is Ikwezi, the morning star. Its appearance just before dawn is a signal for all the young herd boys to wake up and take the cattle out to pasture. The sky is not a random collection of lights. It is a set of instructions, a cosmic timetable for the life of the community. She then shares a lesser-known, wonderfully poetic piece of celestial lore. She tells you that the shooting stars, the brief, brilliant streaks of light that occasionally slash across the darkness, are not falling rocks. They are the spirits of the newly departed, making their journey to the ancestral realm. It is a sad but beautiful sight, a fleeting, fiery farewell. This belief transforms a simple astronomical event into a moment of profound spiritual significance, a visible reminder of the constant, gentle traffic between the world of the living and the world of the spirits. You stand there together in the deep silence, watching the vast, silent turning of the cosmos. The scale of it is almost impossible to comprehend. The stories and concerns of your own life, which often feel so large and all-consuming, shrink to their proper size under this immense, star-dusted canopy. The argument with the brothers over a single calf, the mother's sadness over her departing child, even your own journey, here it all seems so small and fleeting in the face of this eternal, cosmic dance. And yet, the healer's world doesn't make you feel insignificant. Instead, it makes you feel connected. You are a tiny, integral part of this vast, breathing universe, just as the small, yellow wildflower is a part of the veld. Historians and archaeoastronomers still work to piece together the full complexity of these ancient star maps, because the knowledge was entirely oral. It is a fragile legacy, and much of it has been lost. They study the orientation of ancient homesteads in stone circles, searching for astronomical alignments, and they collect the remaining fragments of celestial folklore, trying to reconstruct the sophisticated systems of knowledge that allowed people to navigate their world and understand their place in the cosmos. The debate continues about whether some stone arrangements were simple cattle crawls or complex observatories, a testament to how deeply the sacred and the practical were intertwined. Asterisk. You have reached the low doorway of the healer's hut. This is where your journey ends. She turns to you, and in the soft, silvery moonlight, you can see her eyes. They are filled with a calm, ancient wisdom. She doesn't say goodbye. She doesn't need to. She simply gives you that same, slow, slight nod that she gave you when you first arrived. It is a gesture of acknowledgement, of respect, and of farewell. You nod back, a silent echo of the greeting that began your journey. You duck your head to enter your own sleeping hut one last time, leaving her standing under the vast, star-filled African night sky, a quiet guardian of a gentle, timeless world. Asterisk. And now, as your time in the quiet homestead comes to a close, you can let the images and feelings of the day gently fade. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to learn. You have fetched the water, you have tended the fire, you have listened to the stories, and you have watched the silent turning of the stars. The slow, steady rhythm of the day has worked its gentle magic, and now it is time for rest. Asterisk. You can feel a comfortable weight beginning to settle on your eyelids, a pleasant heaviness in your limbs. Let your breathing slow down, finding a deep and easy rhythm, like the soft, hypnotic beat of the grandfather's drum. With every slow breath out, you can release any lingering thoughts, letting them drift away like sparks from a dying fire, spiraling up into the vast quiet darkness and disappearing. Just allow yourself to sink a little deeper into the softness of your bed, into the quiet of this moment. Asterisk. You can imagine yourself lying on a soft grass mat, looking up through the smoke hole of the hut at a single, bright star. The air is cool and still. The sounds of the homestead have all faded into a deep and profound silence. The world is asleep, and you are safe and warm, held in the gentle embrace of the night. There is nowhere else you need to be, nothing you need to solve. All is well, just the slow, easy rhythm of your own breath, in and out. Drifting now, floating on that gentle tide of breath, easing your way into a deep and truly peaceful sleep.